Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Real World English. I'm Jake, and as always, I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Emma.
Hi, everyone. Emma here, and I'm so excited about today's topic. We're going to be talking about something that makes English both fun and challenging at the same time, idioms and expressions.
Absolutely. You know, Emma, when I was learning Spanish in college, the hardest part wasn't the grammar or vocabulary. It was understanding all those phrases that didn't make any literal sense.
That's exactly it, Jake. Every language has these special phrases that you can't just translate word for word. In English? Well, English is absolutely packed with them.
I think that's why so many of our listeners have been asking us to cover this topic. So today, we're going to explore some of the most common English idioms that you'll hear in everyday conversation.
And we're not just going to list them. We'll explain what they mean, where they come from when we know it, and most importantly, how to use them naturally in conversation.
Perfect. So where should we start? Maybe with some idioms that come up in daily small talk?
That sounds like a plan. Let's start with weather-related idioms since talking about weather is such a common conversation starter, especially here in the UK and in America.
Great idea. So one that immediately comes to mind is under the weather. Emma, have you been feeling under the weather lately?
Thankfully not. But for our listeners who might not know, when someone says they're under the weather, it means they're feeling a bit sick or unwell. It's a nice, gentle way of saying you're not feeling great without going into all the details.
Exactly. So rather than saying, I have a terrible headache and I feel like I might throw up, you could simply say, sorry, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today.
It's perfect for workplace situations where you want to explain why you might not be at your best without sharing all your symptoms.
And speaking of weather idioms, have you heard the expression raining cats and dogs?
Oh yes, it's raining cats and dogs means it's raining very heavily. Though I have to say, this one is becoming a bit old-fashioned. I hear it less frequently these days.
That's true. Language is always evolving, isn't it? These days, people might just say it's pouring or it's bucketing down instead.
Exactly, but it's still good to know because you'll definitely come across it in books, movies, and when talking with older generations.
One weather idiom I really like is every cloud has a silver lining. It's such a positive way to look at things.
I love that one too. For those who aren't familiar, it means that even in bad situations, there's usually something good or positive that can come from it. It's about finding hope even when things seem dark.
Like when I missed my train last month and was initially frustrated, but then bumped into an old friend at the station while waiting for the next one. That was definitely the silver lining to my cloud.
Perfect example, Jake. Now, let's move on to some idioms that might come up in work situations, since many of our listeners use English professionally.
Great transition. One that immediately comes to mind is cutting corners. Have you ever had a colleague who was always cutting corners, Emma?
Unfortunately, yes. For our listeners, cutting corners means doing something in the easiest or quickest way, often sacrificing quality in the process. So if your coworker is cutting corners, they might be skipping important steps to finish faster.
Right, like if you're building furniture and the instructions say to use all the screws provided, but you only use half because it seems sturdy enough. That's cutting corners.
And it usually ends with the furniture collapsing when you least expect it. Not that I'm speaking from personal experience or anything.
Sure, Emma, whatever you say. Here's another common work-related idiom. To burn the midnight oil. This means to work late into the night.
Yes, like I've been burning the midnight oil all week to finish this project before the deadline. It comes from the days when people would work by oil lamps. And if you were working into the night, you'd be burning your oil lamp at midnight.
I love when the origins of these phrases make such literal sense. Here's one more work idiom. Back to the drawing board. What does that mean to you, Emma?
That one means you need to start over because your first attempt didn't work out. For example, our first marketing strategy didn't increase sales, so we're going back to the drawing board.
Exactly. I think it originally came from designers or architects who would literally go back to their drawing boards to create new designs when the first ones were rejected.
That makes sense. Now, should we talk about some idioms related to money? Those come up all the time in daily life.
Definitely. Money talks after all. Oh, there's one right there. Money talks means that wealth gives people power and influence.
Good one. And then there's to cost an arm and a leg, which means something is very expensive.
Like those concert tickets I wanted to buy last month. They cost an arm and a leg, so I decided not to go.
I've always wondered about the origin of that one. It sounds quite gruesome when you think about it literally.
It does, though I believe it might come from the idea that something is so expensive you'd have to sacrifice a limb to afford it. Just a figure of speech, of course.
Of course. Here's another money idiom I use all the time. To break the bank. If something doesn't break the bank, it means it's affordable or won't cause financial problems.
Right, like this new coffee maker was on sale, so it didn't break the bank. That's a really useful one.
Absolutely. And what about penny pincher? That's someone who is very careful with money, perhaps excessively so.
Yes, or we might say someone is tight with money or cheap. But penny pincher has that wonderful imagery of someone literally pinching or squeezing pennies to make them last longer.
It definitely creates a vivid picture. Let's switch gears a bit. How about idioms related to relationships and social situations? Those come up all the time.
Great idea. One that comes up often is to break the ice, which means to do or say something that makes people feel more comfortable in a social situation, especially if they don't know each other very well.
That's such a useful one. Like at parties or networking events, a good icebreaker can really help get conversation started. I think it originally referred to ships breaking through ice to make a path.
That makes sense as a metaphor for clearing the way for communication. Here's another social one, to see eye to eye. If two people see eye to eye, it means they agree on something.
Right. For example, my brother and I don't always see eye to eye on politics, but we respect each other's opinions.
Perfect usage. And then there's to speak of the devil. I love this one. You say it when you're talking about someone and then that person suddenly appears.
Yes, like if I was just telling my friend about running into you at the coffee shop and then you walked in, I might say, speak of the devil.
The full expression is actually, speak of the devil and he shall appear, but most people just use the first part these days.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Oh, here's another social idiom, to let the cat out of the bag. This means to reveal a secret accidentally.
Right, like, I was planning a surprise party for Emma, but then I accidentally let the cat out of the bag by mentioning it when she was in the next room.
Which has definitely happened before. I'm terrible at keeping surprises secret. Speaking of which, here's another one. To be on the same page. This means that two people understand each other or have the same information about something.
That's a really important one, especially in work contexts. Let's make sure we're all on the same page before we start this project means everyone should have the same understanding before beginning.
Absolutely. Now, should we talk about some time-related idioms? Those are really common too.
Great idea. One of the most common is once in a blue moon, which means something happens very rarely.
Yes, like, I only eat fast food once in a blue moon, means you hardly ever eat fast food. And a blue moon actually refers to when there's a second full moon within a single calendar month, which doesn't happen often.
I didn't know that was the origin. Learn something new every day. Here's another time idiom, to kill time. This means to do something while waiting for something else, usually to make the time pass more quickly.
Like playing games on your phone while waiting for a doctor's appointment. You're killing time until it's your time.
Exactly. And then there's in the nick of time, which means just at the last moment possible. I submitted my assignment in the nick of time means you submitted it just before the deadline.
That was definitely me in university, always submitting papers in the nick of time.
I can relate to that. Oh, and what about to beat the clock? That's similar. It means to finish something before a deadline, but it has more of a sense of urgency or competition against time.
Good one. And slightly different from around the clock, which means all day and night, continuously. Like, the emergency room is open around the clock.
These are all so useful. Let me add one more. Time flies when you're having fun. This means time seems to pass quickly when you're enjoying yourself.
And speaking of time flying, we should probably move on to another category of idioms before we run out of time. How about idioms related to success and failure?
Perfect. One classic idiom about success is to hit the nail on the head, which means to describe exactly what is causing a situation or to get something exactly right.
Like if someone sums up a complex situation perfectly, you might say, "You really hit the nail on the head with that analysis."
Exactly, and on the failure side, we have to miss the boat, which means to miss an opportunity because you didn't act quickly enough.
Yes, or similarly, to drop the ball, which means to make a mistake or fail to do something important. It comes from sports where literally dropping the ball would be a mistake.
Sports give us so many idioms, like to hit it out of the park, which means to be very successful at something. It comes from baseball, where hitting a home run is a big achievement.
Or to move the goalposts, which means to change the rules or conditions of something while it's still in progress, usually making it harder to succeed. That one's from football, or soccer as Americans would say.
Great examples. Here's one more success idiom I like. The ball is in your court. This means it's your turn to take action or make a decision. It comes from tennis or similar sports.
That's a really common one in business contexts. I've sent the proposal, so the ball is in their court now. Means you're waiting for the other party to respond or take the next step.
Exactly. And to wrap up this section, what about to throw in the towel? This means to give up or surrender. It comes from boxing, where literally throwing a towel into the ring was a way to signal that a fighter was giving up.
That's a great one to end on, though we're certainly not throwing in the towel on this episode yet. We still have time for a few more idioms.
Definitely not. Let's talk about some idioms that use animals. English has tons of these. One of my favorites is to let the cat out of the bag, which we mentioned earlier. It means to reveal a secret accidentally.
And there's to kill two birds with one stone, which means to solve two problems with a single action. For example, by walking to work, I kill two birds with one stone. I save money and get exercise.
Perfect example. Here's another animal one. To be the black sheep of the family. This means to be different from the rest of your family, usually in a way that's seen as negative or rebellious.
Right, like the one family member who chose a completely different life path from everyone else. And what about having butterflies in your stomach? That means to feel nervous or excited about something.
I always get butterflies in my stomach before recording our podcast. It's that fluttery feeling of nervous excitement. And here's another one. To be a night owl. This means someone who stays up late regularly or prefers being active at night.
As opposed to an early bird, someone who wakes up early. And that gives us the idiom, the early bird catches the worm, meaning people who start early have an advantage or more opportunities.
These animal idioms are great. One more. To have your head in the clouds, which means to be daydreaming or not paying attention to what's happening around you.
That was definitely me in school. Always daydreaming and getting told to get my head out of the clouds.
Well, sometimes having your head in the clouds leads to creativity. Okay, let's see. What other categories of idioms should we cover before wrapping up?
How about idioms related to difficulty or ease, like a piece of cake, which means something is very easy?
Or on the flip side, something might be not my cup of tea, meaning you don't enjoy it or it's not to your preference. Though that's more about liking something than difficulty.
True. For difficulty, we might say something is an uphill battle, meaning it's a challenging task that requires a lot of effort.
Or to bite off more than you can chew, which means to take on more responsibility or work than you can handle. Like when I volunteered to organize the office Christmas party and the summer picnic in the same month.
I remember that. You were definitely burning the candle at both ends. Another great idiom, meaning to exhaust yourself by doing too much, especially by staying up late and getting up early.
I learned my lesson after that. Here's an idiom about something being easy. It's not rocket science. This means a task isn't particularly difficult or complicated.
Or similarly, it's not brain surgery. Both mean the same thing, that something isn't as complicated as these very complex fields.
Exactly, and sometimes we combine them humorously like, come on, it's not exactly rocket surgery.
I love those mixed idioms. They can be really funny. Like, we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. A mix of, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, meaning we'll deal with that problem when it arises, and don't burn your bridges, meaning don't ruin relationships that you might need later.
Those mixed idioms are called malapropiums, or sometimes Bushisms, after former U.S. President George W. Bush, who was famous for mixing his metaphors.
I didn't know they had a specific name. That's fascinating. It reminds me of another idiom, to learn the ropes, which means to learn how to do something, especially a new job. It originally came from sailing, where new sailors had to learn which ropes controlled which sails.
That's a great one. And I think we're coming to the end of our time now. We've covered so many idioms today. Weather, work, money, relationships, time, success and failure, animals, and difficulty.
We have indeed, and I hope our listeners have found it helpful. Remember, the best way to learn idioms is to practice using them in context. It might feel strange at first, but with time, they'll become second nature.
Absolutely. And if you're ever unsure about an idiom, it's perfectly fine to ask a native speaker what it means. Most people are happy to explain.
That's right. And don't worry if you misuse an idiom occasionally. Even native speakers mix them up sometimes, as we discussed with those funny malapropisms.
Before we go, let's remind our listeners that we have a free PDF with all the idioms we discussed today, plus a few extra ones. You can download it from our website at realworldenglish.com.
And next week, we'll be talking about English in the workplace, specifically how to navigate job interviews in English. So tune in for that.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Remember to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. This has been Real World English with me, Jake.
And Emma. Until next time, keep practicing those idioms and we'll catch you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.